you can see this beautiful Nadya. It's not the first time and not the second time she's there. Among all speakers, I don't know what is the magic of Nadya Zhexembayeva. She became the most popular. People ask me questions. People say, tell us more about Titanic Syndrome, which is her book. She works with big corporations. She helped them to reinvent themselves. And she's the founder of Reinvention Academy. And a lot of people say that their life completely changed. From being down, they find inner power to survive. So I will ask today questions, the questions that people ask me and something that I don't understand myself.
Absolutely.
Thank you, dear Nadia. My first question to you. In one of your interviews, you said that if you collect all the fears that you have, you should separate the fears that you can control and the fears you cannot control. And then it will be already easier. Let's say if I have 30 fears, how to separate them? Because you told, okay, write the list. And the list became so long, like 1 paper, 2 paper, 3 paper, 4 paper. I was thinking, oh my God, like Hitchcock movie, horror movie. What's going on? How, by your opinion, to separate that fears, the one we can control and we cannot control?
Okay, so let's clarify that exercise a little bit. Number one, you cannot really control your fear at all. It's a biological response. It's much faster than your rational brain, your prefrontal cortex. So fear happens automatically and it's there to save you. It's your friend. It's coming from thousands of years of human experience where fear was the best method to mobilize your whole body so that the animal or the enemy that is attacking you is facing a resistance from you, that you are fighting or you're running away from whatever danger you are meeting in real life. So fear is automatic. Every time I say that, I illustrate it with a very simple example. You're a driver, I assume, right? You drive a car. Remember the last time you were sitting in a passenger seat and the driver was doing something crazy?
It's terrible. I felt terrible. I felt I want to do something. I want to hit the driver or take the wheel.
Absolutely. And what was your right foot doing?
I was pressing the pedal to stop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are a rational, smart, intelligent, successful human being. But you sat in a car and your brain registered that there is no pedal there. There's no brake. There's nothing to press. But your body is stronger than your rational mind. So it will start pressing the imaginary brake, even though your mind knows that there is no brake to press. You are on the passenger seat. So you cannot control your fear. What you can control is the circumstances around you, or some of them you cannot control. So here's how this exercise works. Step number one, list all of your fears. Step number two, list next to each fear, what is the impact of that particular thing realized? For example, imagine that my fear is that I will be late for this live session. And I will miss it. The alarm will not work. It's morning in the US. My fear. That the impact of that is that I will break a relationship with you because I will be pretty much abandoning you on your own.
Nadia, for me, you will never break relationship with me because I will follow you wherever you are, and you are my guru. And this is not, in my case, forget about that because
but there
I
are
follow
some
you
bad
anywhere.
impacts, right? So
Yes.
there are some bad impacts, hurt feelings, possibilities missed. I will disappoint an audience or something else. Another fear I might have, the internet breaks. I'm awake, I'm on time, but the internet breaks. The impact of that, again, we will miss some opportunities, we will disappoint the audience and so on. So when you list the fears and you list next to each fear impacts, you will suddenly realize that you might have listed 25 fears, but you're talking about 2 or 3 of the same impacts, such as I will disappoint the audience.
Yes.
Whether this will happen, this will happen. What I'm actually afraid of is not this. I'm afraid of this 2, 3, 5 things that are the true essence of what I am afraid of. That's the first thing that we do. We list the fears and we list the impacts, and that will show us the root of the actual fear. The next thing we do, We look at all of these lists and we ask ourselves, which of these circumstances I have control over, and which circumstances, not my fear, but the circumstances around it, which of them do I have control over and which I don't? For example, if the alarm, my fear is that I will be late for this show, do I control that? 99% of the time, it's within my control. I can put two alarms on. I can ask my assistant to call me. I can put stickers all over my house so I don't forget it. There are many things I can do. It's pretty much mostly, unless I don't know, something horrible happens, 99% is within my control. Internet, not fully control, but I have influence. For example, I can buy mobile internet as a backup. I can have a co-working space arranged, which I do. I have a co-working space within 10 minutes of drive of my house. So if I know that we have no internet in this region, I have another region that I know has internet location from a different source that I can get to very, very quickly. So that's not full control, but that's influence. Let's say I'm afraid of something else. I live in Ohio. We have tornadoes at this season, and tornado might have destroyed the whole region. Is that in my control? Zero control. Nothing I can do. That goes into the bucket of no control. So you list your fears, you list the impact, what happens if that fear realizes, and then you look at those two things and you start sorting them in three buckets. Which circumstances I can control, which circumstances I cannot control, but I can somewhat influence, and which circumstances I zero control and I'm wasting my time thinking about it. And what I notice in business, for example, I come to a senior team, and the senior team spends 50% of their time arguing over something that is zero control, like
So
supply
it's actually
chain.
completely waste of time. They're discussing something they cannot control, and by the end of the meeting, they're exhausted, and they even didn't start discussing what they need because they're already exhausted. But this
Absolutely.
is very easy example that you gave about internet, about life. This is the question from one of the Kazakh women who listened to you, and she said, "I'm afraid because in Kazakhstan culture, the woman after 40, she's very old, and my husband will fall in love with somebody young, and I have 4 kids, and I never worked in my life, so I will be alone, I will be old, I will be bankrupt, I will die as a beggar." And she said, "I am afraid so much that I cannot breathe. I'm dying,
Yes.
literally." So if the example is more complicated, and she asked me what I should do. I said, maybe better you ask Nadia,
Same thing.
but what she should do.
Same things. So once you start listing, I'm afraid that he will fall in love with someone else. I'm afraid that I will have no money. You list all the same things and you are very detailed in describing what happens if all of that realizes. What is the impact? What actually you're afraid of? Is that you're afraid that you will not have any money, or you're afraid that you will have to embarrass yourself by publicly announcing it to everyone else? Because most of the time we will be able to earn money. What we're afraid of is public opinion, that we are no longer this shiny object, successful and whatever else. So you list them, and then you start concentrating only on things you can control. For example, I will not be able to earn money. What can you do now to create a plan B? That's true not only if he falls in love with another woman. That's not usually the problem. There are more tragic circumstances that can happen that mean that we all need a plan B. So I have wonderful friends who are very young who unfortunately were lost due to COVID. I had a dear friend who is a film director who died only at the age of 53, and he was exceptionally young. And his wife, of course, is completely unprepared. COVID happened. This is a tragic story. What can you do now to start preparing and building your reinvention muscles? Maybe it's starting a new hobby, which can then translate into another source of income. Maybe it's figuring out small changes you can practice today that will prepare your nervous system for some bigger changes in the future. For example, once you list all those fears and concentrate on things you can control and influence, Whether or not he will meet another woman, you cannot control. But what can you control is how comfortable you are with yourself, how skilled you are if something happens, what tools and resources you have right now for the plan B. So you can start doing simple things. Reinvent the way you spend evenings. Reinvent the way you spend
But I
Saturday.
can hear now that business and relationships, even it sounds like completely different topics. Even it sounds like one is from the earth and other is from the moon. But reinvention system that you invented, it works with both of them. It's not that we
Oh
can
yeah.
apply it only in business. And some people say, oh no, Reinvention Academy is not for me. It's only for CEOs of Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Facebook, Google. But I think no, it's for everybody. It's even for mother with 3 kids, and it's even for the
Absolutely.
owner of small business who has cupcakes.
Oh,
No?
absolutely. We just did an experiment in September. We organized a boot camp, 3-day boot camp for, I don't know how many hundreds of people participated. And we had 3 tracks. One of them was money track, one of them was health track, and one of them was relationship. And I specialize on business because I like business. But I brought my students who are business person, psychologist, and the person who is very versed in health and well-being. And they were the curators of the 3 tracks. They used exact same worksheets, exact same exercises, just applying them to a different area of disruption, because it's like a musical instrument. When you know how to play piano very well, when you're comfortable with the piano, you can play folk music, jazz, rock music, rap on the same piano. It doesn't matter. Same with the reinvention tools. When you have a strong skill in using this tool set, you can solve any kind of disruption and crisis, not just financial or not just relational or not just health or whatever else.
Nadia, what do you think for you personally, you think is your biggest achievement? Is something that you will say, you know, Olga, I'm very proud of
My
this
daughter.
thing. Your
My
daughter.
daughter, there's no question about that. Nothing compares. What can you ever compare to a whole human being who is building herself and you just watching, standing next to it? She's 17 by now. I'm done. I mean, she comes from work, or she works for a year now. She's still in high school. She comes from work and says, hey, Shorty, I'm done. I'm shorter than her. So she's like, hey, Shorty, how's life? So I'm done. My job is over. But just to watching the glory of a whole system emerging and being alive and teaching you lessons. So those of you who follow my work, especially when I teach, half of my stories come from my daughter, because she's so on the money when it comes to reinvention and adaptability. So there's no question, my daughter, of course. And second
Yes.
to that would be my marriage. We just celebrated 19 years. So these 2 things in our volatile world, we as a family moved across the ocean 2 times. My husband and I moved across the ocean 3 times, just as a family 2 times. Just the things we went through, that enough to say this was the most important thing of my life so far.
How your husband and your daughter taking what you are doing? Are they proud? Are they thinking you're doing something unique? Uh,
Sometimes they say you're a bit Titanic syndrome. You're a little bit full of yourself. Come down, come to earth. You're losing yourself. So, my husband is my greatest coach. Every single morning, we go for a walk where his job is to clear my head, because sometimes I become this, I'm a star, I'm a guru, I know everything. And he's like, this is dangerous. Clean this act. Come back to us. I don't know who this is, but come back to us. My daughter sometimes loves it. Of course, there was a long time in our life where she was very upset with me not being home a lot. If you think about my most active consulting years, I would spend over 200 days outside of my country. and my wherever my home was, wherever my daughter goes to school is my country. So 200 days away from home for a child, her 10th birthday, I forgot her birthday. I didn't forget her birthday, I forgot that I need to be at home for her birthday. I just booked all over it because it was not marked in the calendar that it's her birthday, and I just looked at the dates and booked, and I missed her birthday. So I've had a lot of times where I've made mistakes and I had to adjust, and she was pretty upset with me. There's some days where she's more proud of me, and there's some days she's more upset with me.
But
But
you're very brave, Nadia, to say that, to admit that. Not everybody can say. Somebody will try to forget and even not to mention that you
she
overbooked the
reminds
day,
me.
because it's a kind of shameful situation. Even when I'm listening, I feel a little bit awkward. We call it Spanish shame. I feel.
Yes, when
I
you're
feel
awkward for someone else. Yeah.
Yes, I feel I want to read one of the comments I received from my friend Olga Raymond. She is
Oh,
living in Moscow and in
hey,
Italy. And
Olga.
she wrote, Nadia is a very powerful and shining woman, and Kazakhstan woman nature is very different from American. Are you
It
agree with
is.
that Kazakhstan nature, woman nature is different from American, and what is the difference?
Well, first of all, it's very important that I lived and I grew up in a very multi-ethnic, multicultural environment. I grew up in Kazakhstan, in Almaty, in Almata, and I am a second generation of mixed race children. So my parents are mixed, and I'm second type mixed. So this means that I spoke different words, that I mixed different cuisines. I saw people of different religions practicing together, and it made my life much easier because everything is okay. When you have 100 nationalities around you and they all eat different things, you don't judge. You try to see the common nature of people rather than separate. And another thing, Asian culture is very specific in terms of its more long term orientation. So we are more attuned to the idea of honoring our elders and thinking of the long term impact of our generation. And we are a little bit less direct. We like building soft connections rather than cutting people into their faces, which I appreciate. I think a little bit of gentleness and a little bit of kindness is needed in the world. So yes, but in some ways I'm very American. I'm very proactive. I like freedom and extreme force, kind of extreme appreciation of freedom. I like entrepreneurship. I like building new businesses. So in that sense, I'm very American.
How it is possible for you staying that feminine, stay that family oriented, loving your husband, loving your daughter, which is, and being that entrepreneurship, earning money and be successful in that. For Russian and Kazakh
That's
women, there
that
is
is
big
not me.
contradiction.
I don't know how you're describing, but that's not me. I don't, half of the times I don't feel feminine. I feel tired and upset and angry and exhausted and normal stuff. I have bad days and good days. I have days where on Monday, I had so many bad meetings, I could barely walk. Yesterday, I had a keynote at 8 a.m. In South Africa and keynote in Singapore at 10 p.m. And believe me, at 11, I was not feminine and I was not kind to anyone in my family. I was so annoyed with everything that everyone was trying to hide away, go somewhere away from my family. So it's not, life is up and down like a heartbeat. There's a moment of high and there's a moment of low, and all of them are needed. Imagine if we were just in the positive all the time. Imagine your most amazing moment, and imagine that you stayed in that moment for 9 seconds, and then 9 minutes, and then 9 hours, and then 9 days, and then 9 weeks, and then
It's
9 years.
frightening. It's already
Exactly.
frightening. It's frightening. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not
So
natural.
it's
It's
not
not
natural.
human. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be like that. It doesn't sound
After a
natural.
few minutes, you will not want that moment. And after a few hours, you're like, please get me out of this happiness. I need some variety. I need some dynamic. So uh, uh, I I tend to have good days and bad days like everyone else. And there are days where I'm feminine and there's days where I look like a beast and act like the
Beauty
most
and the Beast,
cruel.
Nadia. Don't frighten us. Don't make.
No,
Don't.
no, no. My team knows how frightening I can become when I'm disappointed in something. I don't scream. I appear even more. Somebody was recently mimicking how I look when I'm angry because I'm very monotone. I don't scream. I just become very, very scary.
That is amazing talent and amazing skill. And my last question to you: this reinvention where you're very successful, Reinvention Academy, that helping a lot of people because you work as a producer of humans' life in a way. You give them new tools. This is what I feel. Do you think if we are people who want to stay in the same situation, especially women, they like comfort, they like stability, they don't want really to swim on Titanic. They want something stable that is not going to meet the ice. Mm, Should we escape reinvention, or nowadays all of us we have to reinvent to that way or to that extent or other extent?
I don't see any place on the planet today that can escape reinvention. The speed of change, the disruptions coming our way, we're in the new times, in the new era. If it's not COVID, it will be economic recession. If it's not economic, it will be government regulation, a new competitor, or a new tradition, or new reality. It will be something else. We have a disruption coming pretty much every day. So either we choose to make change our friend, or change will force us to do something against our will, but we don't have a choice to reinvent or not to reinvent. But there is a secret to that. Your source of stability is no longer out there. It's not your family, it's not your husband, it's not your job, it's not your status, it's not your title, it's not your education. Your source of stability now really comes from inside out. And that's a beautiful freedom because nobody can take away what's inside you. Nobody can take away your core. So it's an issue of finding the source of stability that is inside. And when you have that, you are not afraid of changing on the outside because you are not losing yourself. You are just adding a new version, a new manifestation of yourself, a way to show up, but you're not losing anything, you're just gaining. So once you turn inward and find a source of stability on the inside, it becomes a glorious source of freedom, not a fear or an enemy. The change is not your enemy, it's just an open door to become a little bit more free.
I read one of the monarchs who was sitting a kind of prison, and he said, "When I went out, I became stronger and healthy." And everybody said, "How? When you sit in prison, you should die, you should become very weak or very upset." He said, "No, I was drinking water with prayer and say, let it make me stronger and free and let it increase my mindset and make me ready for everything." And when he went out younger and stronger because he said, "I had a lot of time." So try to get out of any situation, even unpleasant situation, out of this big minus, try to get big plus. In a way, I think that what you're doing in a very elegant way, a combination of East and West, Kazakh roots, but with American flavor and flavor from Ohio. Now I'm interested to visit this Ohio, and I'm always waiting for you in Almaty, in Dubai, which I think will be very interesting for you to visit because this is a place of entrepreneurship and of people who are not afraid to explore, and
Yes,
definitely meet somewhere and stay that
well,
beautiful and feminine. This is what I
thank you
think.
so
Thank
much for
you so
asking
much
me
for
back.
being with us. It's a big
Thank